So we're in episode 4 of this quick series that we're doing for you around 4 extremely controversial topics that Dr. Charlie was able to sit on a panel in front of over 500 people at ICSC a few weeks ago, and they worked through and discussed, and quite honestly, in a pretty entertaining environment. So today we're going to talk through the 4th question, which is all about psychological behavior and how that pertains to safety and your culture and in your workplace. Welcome to the PioneerCast. I'm Dwayne Abels, founder and president of Pioneer IQ. I hope over the course of the next few minutes you're able to pick something up that helps you better engage your leaders and better build and scale your organization and your business. We're currently, again, in this episode from ICSC. Centerbuild was the conference in Arizona. Mm-hmm. I think it was snowing here and you were there. I'm not going to say I had FOMO, but I didn't get invited to this conference. But again, this was the 4th question that this panel that you were on covered at ICSC, Centerbuild Conference, and it was in an environment that y'all labeled Unfiltered. And help us, what is Unfiltered? What?
Unfiltered means that sometimes political correctness was thrown out the window.
Oh, well.
People got to say what was exactly on their mind.
Love that. Love that. Okay, cool. And people were still accepted even and respected even though?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Exactly.
Okay, wow.
A couple people got booed, but that's
That's all right. That's all right. That's cool. Okay, so Charlie, we're getting into this particular topic, and it's actually one that you're much more versed as an expert in than I am. I mean, you and I are both, I'd consider us experts in culture, right? But specifically within culture, the whole dynamic of the psychology of safety and how that's really affected inside cultures, right? And how the cultures really affect that piece of it. So walk us through, what was the question? And for those of us who don't know, Dwayne included, like, what in the world is psychological safety? And what were some of the things that came out of that with the panel? Because it sounded like this was a pretty emotionally driven, type conversation.
Yeah, it really was, especially towards the end. This one, I think, had the most audience participation, psychological safety, and some people were very passionate about this. So, and to boil it down, though, really, as a professional, is it safe for me to admit to my employer that I'm struggling with some mental health issues?
And that's basically what psychological safety means?
Right. I can tell you that I'm struggling, and I'm not going to be adversely impacted.
Wow. Okay.
Personally or professionally.
Okay.
But here's what I hear in the field, right? PMs, different executives. I can't tell my employer this, that I'm struggling. Well, why can't you? Because it's going to impact my career. It's going to impact my upward mobility. It's going to impact their respect for me. I'm going to be looked at differently. I'm going to be treated differently. So I'm not going to say anything. And we know that our industry leads the country in a very terrible statistic.
Yeah, you're right. This very near and dear statistic to us. What is that?
It's suicide.
Yeah.
Suicide. And so we have not, as an industry, created an environment where people can admit to and that they're struggling in this space and seek help without it having adverse impact on their careers. Mm-hmm. And we've got to normalize the discussion because it is a normal part of being a human being. Mm-hmm. There are times when we can tackle the world, and then there's times where we don't feel like leaving the house. Mm-hmm. And that's just a reality. And so recognizing that as an employer and providing the tools and the resources that our people need to be successful in this space is so important.
Yeah. Man, that's a great point. And this is a subject that's it's everyone's talking about. I mean, it's kind of a thing right now. But man, what you just said is so true. I'm actually having a hard time processing that. I think, correct me if I'm wrong. Right? This isn't scripted. We're just kind of talking through this together with you. I think at the end of the day, you've really helped us as an organization, Pioneer IQ, understand the concept of love and how significant that is in a workplace environment. And as uncomfortable as it is sometimes to talk about, I mean, we've been on job sites this year with hundreds and hundreds of people, right? And you get on those job sites, and quite frankly, you look around at those men and women, and they're freaking badass. Like, they're wearing badass clothes, they're wearing badass stuff, like they have badass tools. Like, part of me is like, damn, I wish I was cool. You know? I mean, we talked about this, right?
Right.
But on those job sites, creating that environment where people know that you genuinely love them and they're not being judged, even though you still may hold them accountable to their responsibility. They're not being judged because they have a problem that supervisor's probably had before anyway, you know?
Right.
And that concept is so huge, man.
Yeah. And it's a tough subject because, you know, it's impacted me personally over the years. It's impacted a lot of people. And I think, you know, it's a tough guy industry, right? Tough person industry. And so no one wants to be viewed as weak,
Yeah.
right? But that's a misconception.
Yeah.
That a sign of strength is being able to say, I need help, and accepting that help. And people have trouble. And there's a lot of reasons why people have trouble in their relationships at home, at work. And there's no way that we're going to get the best employee if they come to work with struggles at home, right? And as their employer, we can say, I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah.
Or we can say, that's my gal, that's my guy. I'm going to make sure they have the resources available to meet their need. You talk about building employee loyalty.
Mm-hmm.
When you help someone through a difficult time, really,
Yeah.
it's powerful. So it's really, there's I always call them sentinel moments, where in a relationship, you can point to a time when your best friend became your best friend. When you decided that's the woman I'm going to marry, there's a moment. So employers have an opportunity at those moments to step up for their people.
Yeah, man.
And when they do,
100%.
it's a life-changing event. But if they miss that opportunity,
Yeah.
it's a life-changing
Yeah.
event. So
Yeah. You know, I agree, man, and I appreciate your emotion on the subject. I mean, at the end of the day, great high-impact teams are led by loving, great high-impact leaders. And quite frankly, I think it's really hard to be a compassionate, empathetic, and confident leader. And I think it's difficult, you know, to be that, especially in construction when, I mean, there's billions of dollars at stake sometimes, and lives and families and people and assets and all this stuff, and you're responsible for it. You know, I think it becomes hard. But I go back to something that you and I got to experience early in the year, and I'm going to maybe butcher this, so little grace here for me asking Charlie for correction. You and I were during safety week, we went out to 2 or 3 just freaking rad job sites. I mean, some of the biggest job sites I've ever been on in my life, and I've been on a lot of job sites. But we went on a job site, multi-billion-dollar manufacturing plant being built, and Charlie was keynoting for every employee, every worker, every superintendent on the job site. I mean, there was a lot of people here, and we did 2 or 3 that week. And Charlie said, "Hey, we're gonna get there at daybreak. You better have your shoes on and be ready to go," because he knows I kind of drag ass a little bit in the morning. And I said, "Well, what are we going to be doing? Jogging or something?" He's like, "No, but we're going to do flex and stretch." What was it called?
Right, stretch and flex.
Yeah. And I'm like,
Right.
Man, what the hell is that? Like, you know, I'm just saying, like, I didn't know. And in my mind, we're driving, you know, you get there, you check in, and they drive you back, and you're just kind of like, damn, this is cool. And we get there, and I'm like, dude, they're going to do stretch and flex. Like, I'm looking around like these badass dudes, like, they ain't going to stretch. And I'm like, nah. So the lady gets up, and she was phenomenal. Like, you could tell she's an expert at job site safety, and, I mean, she was legit. And I'm like, okay, well, she's legit. Because I thought they'd have, you know, Tiny Buck Tim up there doing whatever, right? And she's legit. And she starts in the first exercise, and I was like, bam! 400 or 500 of them. They start stretching. I'm like, oh my God! Like they're doing it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I'm saying all that to say this: when you create a culture of expectation and setting standards, people go on the job site every day with an expectation to live out that standard. I had no idea that all those badass looking men and women were going to start stretching, flexing in a big circle, on this job site like we did. But it was the thing. That's what they knew that was coming. They were almost waiting and anticipating it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I think that's the role that a lot of these things have to play in our cultures. And you've said it 100 times, I'm just repeating it. But, man, that psychological component in a culture of setting expectations and living them out consistently, man, it's mission critical.
Yeah, it's huge. I just think in my mind, I see this scene of someone breaking their arm at the job site.
Yeah.
And how the coworkers would really take care of that individual.
Yeah.
And get them to first aid and then get them to the hospital. It'd be very caring every step of the way.
Yeah.
But we don't do that on the psychological side.
Yeah.
If someone's struggling.
Yeah.
Wife just left them last night.
Yeah.
What would happen if we treated that employee that way? Hey, man, let's go over here. We got some counseling for you. What can we do? Your needs taken care of. All these little basic things. Is huge.
Yeah. So I want to, you and I talked about this briefly, and I want to close out this podcast series and this episode with this thought. If you are an executive, a manager, an owner, a team leader, anybody that has people reporting to you in 2023 right now, as you hear and watch this podcast, I want to help you understand that the concept of business is just business, that does not exist. That is something that's in your head. If you have that in your head, that does not exist. That died with COVID. That's gone. Right? Business is personal for this generation of people. Not just the young, not just the old. Like this generation, business is personal. And if you want to be an inspiring leader and lead a high-impact team, you have to be willing to dig into these really tough subjects. And here's what I would say to you. If you're struggling with something, you need to talk to somebody about it. And if you have somebody on your team that is struggling with something, initiate the conversation and go talk to them about them. And I'll give you a personal example. I mean, for those of you who know me, 5 or 6 months ago, I weighed 303 pounds. And I was dealing with some big-time self-esteem issues. And Charlie, we even recorded some podcasts in Denver where people knew we had just gotten out of the gym. And I did not look as good as I normally do, but we wanted to shoot a podcast coming out of the gym. Here's my point. I had Charlie, I had other people in our organization, including my wife, and other people that I could go to and say, hey, I'm struggling with this piece, and here's how it affected me. And, lo and behold, I'm 60 pounds down right now, still got a way to go, but I'm realizing now how much I didn't want to talk about it and how much you were initiating it and how much I felt like our team or our clients, and I know this isn't true, it's just in my head, that you would my perception is that you would respect me less. And that is the thing. And we as leaders have to hit that head on, just like you did with me. So if you're struggling or if you have people on your team struggling, man, you got to hit it head on. Number one, they need it and they need you to do that. But you might need that and you might need them to do that. So again, this is another controversial, tough zone, right? A question that was posed at this ICSC Center Build event that you were a panel on. But man, I appreciate us being able to bring these 4 questions and the maybe 1,000 takes that we've been on now to get through them all. But hopefully you've been able to get something out of it. And just know, Charlie and I, Dan, Stephanie, Megan, our whole team, we're here and we take phone calls at 2 o'clock in the morning. I think people think we joke about that. Like that's a real thing.
Yeah, it is.
But we're here for you, right? But on any of these subjects, we want to help you because ultimately it's all about helping you maximize your potential as a leader and you in turn maximizing the people on your team and your organization to ultimately go out and serve something in an extraordinary way. So Charlie, thank you for helping us with the series and bringing the insights to us. And again, have the courage, lead on. These are some tough subjects and you're probably the only one in your business that can help tackle them.